The intro gets better and better every time it plays. Its last call into the semester now. Caden Colford alongside Jake Helton will hop right into things. UINDY clicking on all cylinders. We're at that time of year where the NBA is in full swing and we have a complete college schedule to dive into. Spring sports right around the corner. You name it, we got it. It's all going to be right here on Last Call. We start with women's basketball. This weekend they played Drury and Southwest Baptist, a close game against the best team in the conference, and then they knock off Southwest Baptist. This team on the upswing, seeing some success in a big win, 70-48 against the Bearcats, Jake.
Yeah, and I think one of the big key factors of that is the energy that this team is bringing with them from game to game. You see every player off the bench. I was talking with Coach Sharp, similar to what Coach Hetty said. It's not just a 1 through 5 who's on the court, it's 1 through 14, 1 through 15. Whoever's on the bench, you're just as much of a part of that game as everybody else sitting in that gym. And, well, that gym was pretty full this weekend, and I feel like we're going to be seeing either fuller house or pack the house. But looking at this game, a 70-48 win for the Lady Greyhounds, and one of their best games that I have ever seen against the Southwest Baptist Bearcats. Not only defensively, they shut down the number 3 scorer in the GLVC in Amber Storr. She was averaging just under 14 points per game, 2. And I mean, it's just, 4 points, but not much of a difference there. Amira Savender, she might be the best defender in all of the GLVC right now.
She's definitely looking for that all-defense nod in the conference. And as you look at the scoring totals, Chikamba, another game where she's knocking on the door of 20. 17 for her in this one. Jalen Murray, 11. And Alana Wells in a game back coming off of illness. She drops 19. She has seen some improvement later in this season. And now as she gets going, as Patricia Chikamba continues to destroy the Great Lakes Valley Conference, and as you mentioned, Sapenter doing things on the defensive end for the Hounds, everything starting to come together, and maybe just in time as you move towards the end of the season. This is a fun team to watch.
Yeah, I mean, definitely one of the more...
You never know what you're going to see. We'll say that.
Yeah, exactly. This game was probably the most fun I've seen. When they're dealing with a little bit of height, you'll look at this Greyhound team. The tallest player, 6 foot, in Haley Gilbert. They were dealing with 6'6" this weekend.
It's a tough task.
Yeah, a very tough task to tackle, and, well, they tackled it indeed. They did give up 14 points to Hamilton. That's Tori Hamilton, but one of the worst games she's played all year, and I contribute that to the Greyhound defense.
Says a lot about the Greyhounds. As we move over to Coach Hetty's men's squad, they as well played Drury, and that one an underwhelming loss at that point. But then you bounce back and you really put the pedal to the metal against, again, the Southwest Baptist Bearcats. I actually called into Indy Sports Talk on Radio 1 the other night and talked about this game, and I think there was a lot that went into it, right? Because Deshaun Jackson starts the game 0 for 8. Brody Whitaker can't find a bucket to save his life, and somehow this team ends up not only Brody with a double-double in the game, but this team wins by double figures. And I think that says a lot about what Coach Hetty has put into this program, what it means to buy in to this program. And for a team to have, I think, we have 5 guys in double figures with your 2 best scorers not even having the greatest night from the field. It just, everything clicked, and I think a lot of that, I know I mentioned Coach Hetty, but Grant Diskin is the guy that you need to look at when talking about this Greyhound team.
Yeah, I mean, he had 17 points, but he's the guard. He's going to get down on the ground. He's going to go after the ball, and I think that's something you see 1 through 8 on this team. I even saw Kelvin Amoko, Tucker Tornada, everybody on the ground in this game. And speaking of them, everybody scored. Every single person in this game had 6 or more points, which is something that every coach is going to love to see, spreading the ball. But you look at one player in particular, I'd like to shout out Levante Harris. He's been putting in about 15, 16 minutes per game, but he's been averaging those 10 points those past couple of games, and that is exactly what Coach Hetty needs out of him. And, well, that's exactly what he told us in our interview. He said those are some of the most valuable minutes, especially coming out of him. He comes in, hits 2 threes. Zach Schul hits 2 threes as well. So you're seeing a lot of production off that bench, and that's really important whenever you only have 8 players.
Yeah, you and I have both played on a bunch of different teams in terms of basketball, and you always need a glue guy, right? A guy that's going to go in there, not necessarily going to drop 25, 30, but to get stops on the defensive end, deflections, blocks, and then hit a key triple down the stretch takes a lot, and things are really starting to come together now for the Greyhounds. And it seems like they've been up and down, and they're playing good games against great teams, and they have Missouri S&T coming up. You and I will be on that broadcast on WICR. That is going to tell you a lot about where this team stands in terms of the conference standings and what they can do come the end of the season.
Absolutely. But before that, we have a game on Thursday against Lincoln, which I think is a little bit more important. While points-wise, which is how the GLVC rankings kind of work, but points-wise, that game against S&T, it's going to be a lot more valuable for points. However, if you're looking at it, Lincoln's in the middle of the pack right now. They're in right around that 500 range. The Greyhounds knock them off. They might move into that 6, 7 spot. Right now, I believe they sit at 8.
Yep.
So they will be in the conference tournament.
The last team into that conference tournament if it ended right now.
But unfortunately for them, not going to end right now. They're going to have to play quite a few more games. But this Lincoln squad, newest member of the GLVC, pretty darn good this year.
Hey, trap games are everywhere. Got to look out for them and can't count. No nights off in the GLVC. That's what we always say, right? No nights off in the Great Lakes Valley Conference. Moving from basketball now to the spring sports, where softball and baseball both ranked top 10 in their own preseason rankings. Softball at number 3, baseball at number 6 in all of the land. But these two teams obviously have a lot of graduating seniors. We'll start with softball first. They'll be in Nashville to throw their season into the mix, and you lose Kenzie Smith, right? That is a huge, huge piece. National Pitcher of the Year that you won't have in the halo anymore. So how, as a team and as a staff, do you bounce back from that and have another successful season of Greyhound softball?
Obviously, a senior like her, she was actually a 2-time Pitcher of the Year at the Division II level, which I don't know that really anyone other than former UINDY Morgan Foley did. But you lose her. Not only do you lose a very good leader on that team, we got to spend some time with them, and I mean, her leadership was second to none. She had that team, I wouldn't say wrapped around her finger, but they were performing for her, it almost seemed like. They were out there diving on the ground, trying to save her perfect game when it came down to it. And, well, this is a team that I think is a true team, a family at that, especially with Coach Frost at the head. And, well, this weekend they're going to get a rematch of the Super Regional against Trevecca Nazarene. That'll be on Saturday. So that might be telling a preview once again of that Super Regional matchup. But you look in that halo this year, it's going to be Jayden Casebolt manning the circle. So a little bit of a change, but she was pretty solid last year for the times that she did get to come in, and I think that, well, the Greyhounds are in good hands.
And we move to baseball, where the franchise Kayla Vaughn and Drew Donaldson, they're out of the mix this season, but still number 6 in the nation before the first pitch is thrown. Easton Good named a preseason All-American. That's a name to look out for this season. For them, they're coming off of 2 trips to Cary, looking for a 3rd straight, which would be historic UINDY-wise, and just continues to add to that UINDY legacy in terms of athletics here at the university. For them, it's, I'll say it time and time again, season in, season out. It seems like a couple seasons ago we were saying we're not going to need to send anybody to the regional, right? It's very unlikely the Greyhounds make it, and they were in a similar situation last year where they start off the season not super hot, but this team just finds a way, and they're looking to do the same thing this year.
Yeah, and on top of that, they're a very fun team to be around. We get to
Always
see a lot of their TikToks on all the UINDY pages, stuff like that. Very fun team, and, well, you got a chance to go with them to Cary, and we'd be excited to go again.
Well, and that's not all for Greyhound success. How about Alex Meyer? 33-year high jump record broken this past weekend for the Greyhounds, and the high jump record at 2.12 meters. For context, that is a Nikola Jokic, that is a Miles Turner. That's high.
Wow.
6'11 and a half.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. I don't think you could do it. Not many people in the world could do it, and it's good for top 10 in Division II right now. That's Greyhound news in terms of sports. We'll be back and talk some football action, starting with a new acquisition for the Colts.
There's often a moment when you're helping somebody with math where they just suddenly get over that little barrier and they get it. It's a nice aha moment, and I really like being involved in helping students achieve that moment. And we do get a lot of those here in the tutoring lab.
fresh start on the defense for the Indianapolis Colts. Lou Anarumo is going to be called upon to save that defensive end of the Indianapolis Colts, which people have been asking for it seems like years here in the Circle City. That's a hire for them. What changes are you expecting on the defensive end?
Well, as a Bengals fan, I've gotten a little bit familiar with Anarumo, and, well, this article that I have pulled up, it's telling me one thing. His stats were so bad this year that Colts fans, they're just writing it off. They have started to use his 2022 stats in all the articles to make him look better, but we'll go with them. In 2022, the Bengals defense was tied for 5th in points allowed with just 20 and a completion percentage of under 60%, the lowest in the NFL. So he's a guy that knows how to coach up a defense. Obviously, Trey Hendrickson, he's always in the conversation for one of the best defenders in the league. The big question for me is, can he come in and change the secondary for the Colts? Because I know that was a big problem for the Bengals, dealing with the secondary, especially that Super Bowl year. That was the big problem, was the secondary.
He does have about a year to figure it out. And for him, he said that a new start for players, for coaches, can be a great thing and open a lot up. We'll keep tabs on that progression, on how the Colts do in the offseason. But we'll stick with teams that are still playing football to this point in the NFL, right? Washington Commanders versus the Eagles. And the first play of scrimmage from the Eagles kind of told the story of this one. Saquon Barkley, 3 touchdowns, and the Eagles dog walk the Commanders, to say the least. 4 turnovers isn't going to do it a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, you have some fumbles, and then that interception, it was just forcing it down the field by Jayden Daniels. So that's kind of one you can put a star next to. Those other 3 big ones, they came in very big moments, allowed the Eagles to really get ahead. And when you give up 28 points in the second half, unless you score 35, you're probably not going to win that game. So turnovers can't happen. And you look at the Commanders and where their success had been coming from in the playoffs, well, they forced 5 turnovers against the Lions. That's a pretty easy win. When you flip the script, you're the one turning the ball over a lot. Well, it's going to be a lot harder to win, especially against a very, very talented defense. Maybe one of the most talented defenses I've seen in my lifetime in the Eagles right now.
You know, it's a tough task, but Jayden Daniels in his rookie season going to a conference championship game obviously would have liked a different result, but you start asking the question about this guy. He is in conversations for one of the greatest rookies of all time. Look at the landscape of the NFL right now, and I asked Jake, where does he sit in your rankings for active quarterbacks? Guys up there like Joe Burrow. Yeah. Where's he sit?
I mean, obviously, you just said it right there. I'm a Bengals fan. I've watched a lot of Joe Burrow football. I'm 100% confident that the Bengals had won one more game, he would have been in the MVP conversation. If they hadn't started off 0-2, 0-3, whatever it was, then he would have been in that conversation. But you look at the rest of the NFC, we talked about it a little bit, not too much talent. I do want to say one name, Jared Goff. You take away that one game where he had 5 interceptions, he's sitting at 7 and 35 touchdowns, I believe. So, in my opinion, I think I'm going to have to sit here and say that Jared Goff was a little bit better than Jayden Daniels. But when you take in the experience level and how much room Jayden Daniels has to grow, and you're going to ask me who I would take, I would definitely take Jayden Daniels right now. I think the Commanders are going to have a lot of success with him in the future. But looking at the stats this season, Jared Goff had one of the better seasons, and you can't forget about Lamar and Josh Allen over in the AFC, 2 phenomenal seasons out of them.
Plus Joe Burrow over in the AFC, and I think that we're pretty understood the AFC quarterback heavy compared to the NFC. But as I look at the National Football Conference, Jared Goff, maybe Jordan Love, and when we throw Jayden Daniels in the mix, I'm also looking at Baker Mayfield. And look, when it comes to ranking him within the NFL, obviously Lamar, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, all ahead. Joe Burrow, with all the weapons that he has, one of the best offenses in the league, it should be, and doesn't make the playoffs. I don't know. It's hard for me to say that he had a better season than Jayden Daniels. It's really hard to say that for me, and that's the AFC. Move over to the NFC. Obviously, Jared Goff has Amon-Ra St. Brown. He has one of the best running games ever assembled in the NFL to back him up, whereas Jayden Daniels The running back for the Commanders, 6 rushing attempts. One of those a touchdown, about 50 yards, but it's not enough. We look at this guy, definitely my front runner for Rookie of the Year, and I think the second best quarterback in the NFC behind Baker Mayfield.
All right. Well, I definitely wanted to throw Baker Mayfield in there in my conversation just because if you look back to that Thursday night game against Kirk Cousins, that was one of the most entertaining games that we saw all season.
Wasn't
and
it?
Not only just because it's Baker Mayfield, but the performance backed it up. I would definitely put him over there. I think right now Jayden Daniels is in that 5 or 6 spot with this season's performance. Obviously, he's got a long career ahead of him to prove us different, but
is he better than Joe Burrow?
No way he's better than Joe Burrow.
All right.
No way.
All right, we'll disagree, but we'll talk about definitely the better game yesterday and the Chiefs and the Bills. A great game for a football fan to watch. I mean, I was on the edge of my seat this entire time. These two teams were going back and forth, and we got to see 2 of the best quarterbacks in the league go at it, duel everything that they had, a 32-29 contest. And this one, the Chiefs just outlast the Bills. A couple controversial calls at the end, but if you ask me, I think the Chiefs won this game plain and simple. They're the better team, better coached, better front office. Everything showed in this game. And Kansas City, they're proven winners at this point.
Well, I mean, they definitely did win the game on the scoreboard, and they're moving on to the Super Bowl. But obviously, outside the refereeing, this was the second game this season that I had to turn off because I was getting too upset at it to continue watching it. And, I didn't see the end of that. I watched it on Instagram, thankfully. But the calls, not the best. I'm going to be honest. The calls, they were pretty bad. I think Josh Allen had that first down. I don't think it was a catch. And, that's all I have to say about that.
And, it's calls like that affect Josh Allen's legacy. We turn to this guy who's had a historic season. He's definitely up there for MVP this season in the National Football League, up with Lamar Jackson probably. But it begs the question, Jake, for Josh Allen to run into Patrick Mahomes each and every year in the playoffs and lose to Patrick Mahomes each and every year in the playoffs, how does history remember Josh Allen?
See, I think you got to look at it as Josh Allen. He does his part to an extent, but I feel like there's always I read the reports and they're always like, I wish Josh Allen just could have did a little bit more to help out his team compared to a Patrick Mahomes. How many times in a win do you see where they say, Patrick Mahomes sucked, he should have did this and this and this, and they're not just hating? Not very often. There's not very many times where Patrick Mahomes isn't doing the right things at the right time. And kind of to your point, Andy Reid, I think he might go down as one of the better coaches, if not one of the best, up there with Bill Belichick. You look at the team that he's created. It is a team with a chance to win a three-peat, which, not very common in any sport. And lucky for him, he's had the chance to work with probably the best quarterback to ever play college football.
I think about Josh Allen myself, and as someone who grew up in the Circle City, grew up in Indianapolis, watching Peyton Manning consistently lose to Tom Brady, I make the comparison between Josh Allen and Peyton Manning. However, you look at Peyton Manning and 5 MVPs? And to this point, Josh Allen is nowhere near on pace to match Peyton in that aspect of the game. And just as we look at styles of play, he'll never be the thrower that Peyton Manning was. But at the same time, he never had the receivers that Peyton Manning had, right? And we're looking at Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, Dallas Clark, with just a crazy offensive line headed by Jeff Saturday. So Peyton kind of had his offense handed to him. That's a topic for another day. But I can't even say Josh Allen's going to be remembered in that kind of light. It's hard when you look at his recognitions in terms of MVPs and awards. The Pro Bowl only counts for so much, right? The Pro Bowl only counts for so much. And while I love Josh Allen, and many NFL fans love Josh Allen, he'll never be Patrick Mahomes. And that's just the way it is. Unless he can pull 3 Super Bowls out his behind really quick, which is going to be really hard to do.
Yeah, especially not going this year. But he could take a step in the right direction with that MVP. I don't see the same thing that the people who say he has a better season than Lamar are seeing. I think Lamar was the better quarterback. Maybe it's an AFC bias, but I think Lamar is the best. Or, well, I guess they're both in the AFC North bias, but yeah.
You know, I'm going to hop on the Josh Allen train real quick. He is the entire franchise. This guy was the entire franchise last night. I saw, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. You knew where the ball was going. And at the end of the game, it wasn't James Cook, who was absolutely dominating, by the way. It was going to be Josh Allen. Josh Allen, if I had to guess, accounted for probably a third of Buffalo first downs last night. And that's crazy to think about. The play calling, I think, on that end of the football was atrocious, for one, especially as you get to the final 3-4 minutes. It was Josh Allen running to the left, which Kansas City had figured out. But to Josh Allen's credit, he did get that first down. Still got that first down. And, you know, we're going to die on that hill. Josh Allen deserves more credit than a lot of people think, but he just won't. And I think that's just the nature of the game, the nature of how history plays out. And there's a lot of guys that are lost to history. I hate to say it, Josh Allen maybe one.
All right, I'll ask you an objective question. Take out the stats. Let's look at just who's the better player, the better athlete overall. I think it's an easy thing to just look at Mahomes and say he's made better plays, he looks better when he's playing. But watching Josh Allen throw the ball last night, I mean, he looked like he had a rocket attached to his shoulder.
We could have this talk right now, but there's nobody better than Patrick Mahomes. I'm sorry. I mean, Lamar's going to win the MVP, but realistically, if you can't win against Patrick Mahomes, you will never, ever, 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 ever be able to say that Josh Allen was the better quarterback. Looking back on things, you can look at numbers, you can look at touchdowns, you can look at whatever. You're going to look at the final score of this game. It's going to say 32-29 Chiefs, and that's why Patrick Mahomes will always have the one-up on Josh Allen, no matter what.
Well, if you need some donuts to go with all that glaze, then
all right,
we can go to Dunkin' Donuts. But we got some Pacers to talk about when we come back on Last Call.
Kiki, do you love me? Are you riding? Say you never ever leave from beside me. Duh.
Yeah, for anybody catching Jake's drift, I apologize for the excessive glazing of probably one of the best quarterbacks to ever play football. But as we step outside the realm of football, we'll move to basketball. They ask who's in Paris. I'll tell you who's in Paris. The Pacers were in Paris, and they played the Spurs. They got whooped one game in the first contest, and they won by almost an unimaginable amount in their second matchup. We look at them. That's Pacers versus Warriors not too long ago. But they won 136-98 most recently and then lost 140-110. We're seeing this team on both ends of the spectrum, and I think it comes down to where does this team want to be when it comes time for the season to end. As of right now, they're 5th in the East, which is definitely exceeding my expectations for where they're supposed to be.
Well, I think it's weird because if you look back, if you're to watch the first or second episode of Last Call, you'll see us very high on the Pacers talking about maybe another Eastern Conference final run, a championship.
Speak
and then
for
as soon as
yourself.
the season started, it was downhill. Panic button was being pushed just about every single week. They were losing games by 20 plus, and well, I guess that's still going on. But I think, like you said, it's who do they want to be, and well, when do they want to become that team? January, it's been a pretty good month for them. They've only lost 2 games, that one to the Spurs and then one to Cleveland, arguably the best team in the NBA. So you look at the Pacers, and one, they are playing a pretty tough stretch of games pretty often. I feel like every other week I'm looking at their schedule, I'm like, okay, those are some good teams, might be some good games to watch. But you're looking at the Spurs, I don't know that they're a team that should be beating the Pacers by 30 points.
You know, you have an alien on that squad in Victor Wembanyama, but one column I look at in both of these games is San Antonio over 20 turnovers in both. And in the first game, Pacers shoot 60% from the field, about 43% from distance, and that gets you the 30, almost 40-point win, right? But when your shooting isn't on the mark, what kind of team are you? This is a team that relies very heavily on its offense, and that's not a secret. Everybody knows that to this point. Tyrese Halliburton is coming into his element this season, which is what you like to see if you're a Pacers fan. 28 points in the most recent game against San Antonio. But I look at this team, and I think that they're a matchup-based team. The matchups are going to determine whether this team wins a 7-game series or whether this team loses a 7-game series, and I think that translates to last year. Against an injured Knicks team, you can go win 7. Against a Boston squad that is good 1 through 10, you're going to get swept, and that's exactly what happened.
Well, that's the best thing about the NBA. 7-game series, you had to play well for almost 7 games. If it ends up going to 7 games, you had to play good for 7 games. And, well, that really weeds out, I feel like, some of the Cinderella stories, so to speak. In the Pacers' case, it happened in the Eastern Conference Finals, but still a Cinderella story, in my opinion. I think there's a chance that they make it back to the Eastern Conference Finals, but it's not going to be as dominant as it was last time around.
And with that, Jake, you want to talk about Glazing? It's time to put your money where your mouth is, because this is where it gets serious. This is the Pick 'em, the Primetime Pick 'em. We'll have a game for each day of the week that we are definitely going to tune into. Behind me, it's the Lakers and the 76ers, and I think this one, relatively simple. 76ers can't stay healthy. Lakers have won 3 straight. LeBron, AD combined for a W, even in Philadelphia.
Well, I got a similar opinion. The Lakers have won the past 2 against the 76ers, and, well, I'm a guy of trends, so I'm going to go with the Lakers.
And we move quickly to the second game. Nuggets are going to travel very far, actually, to Madison Square Garden to play the Knicks. In this game, what are you thinking?
Well, I mean, the Knicks have won the past 2 by double digits. So I'm going to go with the Knicks. I like Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart. Give me the Knicks.
You know, I hate to say it, but I agree with you. I think the Knicks are similar to the Pacers in the fact that they're a matchup-based squad. They're a very fast squad and a great rebounding team that bids well against Denver. However, I think this game is a lot closer than the last 2, but I'm with you. The Knicks are going to take it. We'll move to the Oklahoma City Thunder as they take the road to play the Warriors. Thunder playing the best basketball in the league right now. It's hard to bet against them. I think we're going to agree on this one as well. OKC getting the win.
Well, Steph Curry, he's averaging 22.3 points per game, 40% from the three-point line. Doesn't matter. Give me the Thunder.
Doesn't matter.
Give me the Thunder.
Doesn't matter. These last 2, though, might shake it up a little bit. Atlanta Hawks, Cleveland Cavaliers. That's one of the best teams in the East playing the Cavaliers. No, right? But in this one, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I was looking at this matchup, looking stats-wise, and honestly, I think the stats favor the Hawks a little bit. They're getting more points in the paint, more points in transition, and, well, they've won the last 2, so give me the Hawks.
They've won the last 2 by a decent margin, but this is a Cleveland team that has no excuse to lose to Atlanta, right? I don't think they have any excuse to lose to Atlanta, and I think they're too star-studded to drop another to the Hawks, who should find themselves out of the NBA. However, last game on the slate, Houston Rockets at Memphis Grizzlies. And am I first? Is my turn?
I believe you are.
All right. Well, I like Memphis in this one. I like Memphis. I like the squad that they have assembled. Zach Edey, it's been fun watching him progress at the pro level, and I think they get it done against the Rockets team who's really, really good. But I think Memphis, if they play their best game at home, there's not a lot of teams in the NBA that can beat them.
Well, we are going to be going in different directions on this one.
Good.
Thank you to Google Docs for not working, so I don't know why I picked the Rockets. I did have a pretty good reason. I know I did, but can't remember. And before we do head out, we're going to go ahead and look at this. You see that right there, doing a little bit better.
That's literally last season. What? Last season. Scratch it. We'll be back next time.
Nope,
Last call.
saying. But before we do head out, a special thank you to some of our viewers. We'd like to shout them out. Miss Stone and Miss Osborne's kindergarten class at Franklin Square Elementary class. They actually called me last week and told me happy birthday, or well, sang me happy birthday as a class. So we'd like to thank them for listening and tuning in to Last Call every week. But don't forget, 6 p.m. Mondays, Last Call.
Zach Glazing.